You thought love was sacrifice? You thought control came with shouting. You thought your doubts meant you were broken. But what if the quiet was the loudest sign? What if the kindest words held the sharpest edges? What if the most dangerous stories were the ones told gently? Over time, until you forgot how to hear your own voice, this is not just about manipulation. It's about memory, power, truth, and the quiet decision to choose yourself even when it costs everything. Whispers you didn't notice. Have you ever felt like something was wrong, but you couldn't put your finger on it? Like the air changed in the middle of a conversation, but no one else seemed to notice. You told yourself, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe it's just me. And yet, deep down, something felt off. There was no yelling, no obvious blame, just a shift, a subtle push, a silence that said too much. You started second, guessing your memories, apologizing for things you didn't do, questioning your worth, your instincts, your own voice. You felt confused. But somehow they always seemed so clear, so certain, so right. That's the thing about manipulation. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, gently, lovingly, with a smile. It comes dressed as care, as concern, as advice. It makes you feel like the problem is you, but it's not. Manipulation is the quiet art of bending truth without breaking it, of shaping someone's reality until they can't tell where yours ends and theirs begins. It's not just in toxic relationships. It's in friendships that leave you drained, in family conversations that turn into traps, in workplaces where silence is survival, in headlines, in algorithms, in public speeches that tell you what to fear, what to love, what to believe. Sometimes it's not someone else doing it. Sometimes it's you, to yourself. You tell yourself you don't deserve more, that you're too sensitive, that maybe if you were just a little better, they wouldn't act that way. And that is when manipulation does its best work, when it makes you doubt your own reality, so you cling to someone else's version of it. But here's the truth. If something feels wrong, it usually is. Even if you can't explain why, even if they make you feel crazy for thinking it, what you feel is real. What you sense is valid. In this story, this journey we're about to take is about learning to see those quiet moments for what they really are. Not just bad behavior, not just misunderstandings, but power, hidden in plain sight. The anatomy of control. Manipulation is rarely obvious. It's quiet, strategic, disguised. It doesn't demand your obedience. It earns your trust, and then it bends it. See, real power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it cries. Sometimes it says, I'm doing this for your own good. That's what makes manipulation so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like protection, like guidance, like love. But what it actually does is slowly rearrange your sense of self so that what you want starts to sound unreasonable. What you feel becomes inconvenient, and who you are starts to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. That is not love. That is control. But not the kind you see in movies. No slamming doors, no shouting matches, no villains twirling their mustaches. No, this control hides in little things, in tone, in timing, in the careful way they give you just enough approval to keep you close, and just enough fear to keep you silent. Sometimes it comes as guilt. I do everything for you and you can't even do this one thing. Sometimes it comes as doubt. I think you misunderstood. That's not what happened. Sometimes it comes as flattery. No one else gets me like you do. And sometimes it comes as silence, as a sudden withdrawal of affection until you fall back in line. Manipulation isn't always intentional. Not every manipulator is evil. Sometimes they're wounded. They learned early that control meant safety. That vulnerability led to abandonment. So they became experts in bending others before they could be broken themselves. And here's the hard part. Sometimes we do it too. Without realizing, we lie by omission, we sugarcoat, we guilt trip, we withhold because we're scared, because we want to be chosen. Without asking, because we want our needs met. Without seeming needy, that's the truth we don't like to look at. Manipulation isn't just something done to us. It's something we're all capable of. But that doesn't mean we are bad people. It means we're human, flawed, afraid, trying to navigate the world in the only ways we were taught. And yet, there is a difference between those who manipulate from fear and those who manipulate to dominate, to win, to control. So what separates persuasion from manipulation? Intent, transparency, respect for the other person's agency. Persuasion says, here's what I believe. Let's talk. Manipulation says, here's what I want. Let's pretend it was your idea. One honors your freedom. The other hides behind it. And over time, it rewires your brain. You start anticipating their reactions. Before you speak, you shrink your truth, so they stay calm. You confuse safety with silence. And when that happens, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a performance. So what does it look like? Gaslighting, guilt tripping, passive-aggressive punishment, conditional affection, micromanaging, isolating, shaming, invalidating. And the scariest part? It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, softly, one compromise at a time, until you wake up one day and realize you've forgotten how to trust yourself. But you can learn. You can learn to spot the patterns, to name the tactics, to hear the difference between a boundary and a leash. Because the moment you name it, you take back something that was stolen from you. Your clarity, and from clarity comes power. Beneath the surface, not every manipulator knows they're manipulating, and not every person being manipulated realizes it's happening. Because this isn't just about tactics. It's about wounds. It's about fear. It's about survival. Some people learn early in life that love is not given freely. It must be earned. That affection disappears when they're honest. That safety only exists when they stay in control. So they become masters of reading the room. They learn how to influence emotions, how to get what they need, without ever having to ask. Calm. It's not about power, not at first. It's about protection. Control becomes their way of never feeling helpless again. And once it starts working, they rarely stop to ask what it costs the people around them. But what about the other side? The one who's caught in it, wrapped in confusion, walking on eggshells, trying to be enough. For someone who always needs just a little more, it doesn't happen all at once. They don't walk into it knowingly. It begins with charm, with intensity, with connection that feels like destiny. And then, slowly, things shift. They begin to doubt themselves. Their memory, their instincts, they tell themselves, I'm just being too emotional. This is what love looks like. This is what I deserve. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Sometimes we stay, not because we don't see what's happening, but because we're afraid of what it means. If we finally call it what it is, we want to believe they didn't mean it, that it'll change, that if we just love them harder, they'll finally feel safe enough to stop controlling. But that's not how it works. The more you shrink yourself to keep someone else comfortable, the more they rely on your silence to maintain their power. It becomes a cycle. One person controls out of fear, the other submits out of hope, and both end up trapped in a pattern that looks like love, but feels like erosion. And yet, there's a reason we don't always walk away. Because manipulation doesn't just confuse your mind, it entangles your nervous system. It builds bonds through fear and relief. It makes the chaos feel familiar, and the calm feels suspicious. This isn't weakness. This is wiring. This is survival, and it can be unlearned. But it starts with seeing clearly, with asking the hard questions, Not just, why do they treat me this way? But, what part of me believes this is okay? What part of me thinks I need to earn love? What part of me is afraid of being free? Because once you understand the story beneath your choices, you can begin to rewrite it. Not for them. For you. The invisible strings. You like to believe your thoughts are your own. That your opinions were chosen, not planted. That your fears are based on facts, not carefully crafted narratives. But what if they aren't? What if you've been nudged, subtly and repeatedly, to believe, to buy, to fear, without even noticing? Manipulation isn't just personal, it's systemic. It's cultural, it's commercial, it's political. It's built into the headlines you read, the ads you scroll past, the conversations you overhear. It's hidden in what's repeated, what's left out, and what's said with just enough certainty to make you stop asking questions. This is not just about people. It's about systems that survive by shaping perception. They don't need to silence you. They just need to flood your attention, distract, distort, divide. They don't need truth to win, just doubt to grow. So they feed you fear in bite-sized, shareable pieces. They prey on your desire to belong, to be right, to be seen as on the good side. They use identity as a weapon, outrage, as a business model, emotion, as a shortcut to control, because the truth is slow. It's quiet. It asks you to pause, to think, to sit in discomfort. But manipulation is fast, loud, certain, and addictive. Think about it. When was the last time you questioned a headline that confirmed what you already believed? When was the last time you paused before sharing something that made you angry? When was the last time you asked yourself, who benefits from me feeling this way? Because if you don't ask, someone else will answer for you. Manipulation thrives in unawareness. It grows in noise, in repetition, in slogans that bypass logic and go straight for identity. You're either with us or against us. They don't want you to know the truth. They're trying to silence you. They are the enemy. The moment you hear "they" too often, you should start asking, who told me that? And why do they want me to believe it? Even algorithms manipulate. They learn what outrages you, what comforts you, what keeps you scrolling, not because they care, but because your attention is the most valuable currency in the world. And so your feed becomes a mirror, but a distorted one, reflecting only what you already know, already fear, already want to hear. And the longer you look into that mirror, the more convinced you become that what you see is all there is. But it's not. It never was. That's the terrifying beauty of large-scale manipulation. It doesn't feel like control. It feels like truth. And yet, truth rarely flatters. It rarely comforts. And it never demands your loyalty. Only your honesty. So what can you do? You can pay attention to repetition, to emotion, to what gets rewarded in the things you watch, read, and repeat. You can stay curious, especially when something makes you feel certain. And most importantly, you can slow down, because manipulation moves fast. But awareness takes its time. Learning to see, learning to stay free. The moment you recognize manipulation, everything changes. What once felt like love now feels like control. What used to sound like truth starts to echo with intention. You begin to see the patterns, the rewrites, the unspoken rules that once felt normal now feel unbearable. And yet, this is also where it gets harder, because seeing the truth doesn't make it easy to walk away. It just makes it impossible to stay asleep, You start to wonder, how did I not see it? How long has this been happening? And maybe the hardest question of all, why did I let it? But pause. Take a breath. Because this is not a story about blame. This is a story about awakening.com. You are not weak. You were trusting. You were not foolish. You were loyal. You weren't blind. You were surviving. And now, you're remembering how to choose yourself again. But awareness alone isn't enough. You have to act. You have to rebuild. Not just your boundaries, but your beliefs. Not just your voice, but your nervous system. Because manipulation doesn't just live in your mind. It settles in your body. It teaches you to flinch at conflict, to smile when you want to scream, to freeze when you should run, to doubt yourself. In the exact moment you most need clarity. So healing isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's slow, gentle, quietly radical. It's the way you pause before saying yes, just to see if you mean it. It's the way you start answering, "I'm not sure yet." Instead of rushing to please, it's the way you ask, "Is this mine? Or was I taught to feel this way?" And yes, healing means disappointing people. It means setting boundaries that shake the foundation of old dynamics. It means walking away, even when you still love them, even when part of you is still waiting for them to change. But more than anything, it means coming home to yourself, to your truth, to your instincts, to the voice you had before someone taught you to question it. So how do you protect yourself from manipulation? You stop making other people's comfort more important than your own clarity. You stop confusing peace with silence. You stop thinking love means sacrificing yourself. You start watching how people respond to your no, to your needs, to your honesty. You learn to sit with guilt without letting it guide you, to feel fear without letting it choose for you, to tell the truth even when your voice shakes. Because here's the secret. People who love you don't need to control you. And you don't need to be small. To be safe, you don't need to perform. To be loved, you don't need to guess what someone wants, just to be worthy of wanting. The clearer you become, the harder you are to manipulate. And that clarity, that is your freedom. Not loud, not flashy, but unshakable. It's the quiet, sacred power of someone who knows who they are and refuses to be rewritten. The truth doesn't shout. Truth doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes in the quiet, in a glance you used to ignore, in a sentence you've heard 100 times, but finally, hear differently. It comes in stillness, in silence that no longer feels safe, in laughter that no longer feels warm, in patterns that once looked like love and now look like loss. You don't need a breakdown to have a breakthrough. Sometimes the shift is subtle. A thought, a pause, and knowing that settles in your bones. Before it ever reaches your words, you start to notice what drains you, who interrupts your peace, what conversations leave you shrinking, spinning, second-guessing.com. And little by little, you stop negotiating with confusion. You stop editing your truth. To keep others comfortable, you stop saying maybe. When you mean no, you stop saying it's fine. When it isn't, you stop waiting for someone to give you permission to walk away. And in that moment, you return to yourself. No grand announcement, no spotlight, just you, choosing your own voice over the noise. This isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being honest. It's about knowing the difference between being kind and being compliant, between being understanding and being erased. You will still feel doubt, still feel guilt, still miss the version of them that never truly existed. But you will also feel clarity, strength, space, and peace. Not the peace that comes from pleasing others, but the kind that comes from no longer abandoning yourself. So now you know what manipulation looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, and most importantly, what freedom feels like. Not someone else's version of it, yours. Because the truth doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it doesn't beg to be believed. It just waits for the moment you're finally ready to hear it.